Let's
But
bring
someone
in some clarity and some realism and just a good old-fashioned friend. Blaine Fowler is back in Studio B to discuss football and basketball with us on BYU Sports Nation.
He's the Tua Tagovailoa of BYU Sports Nation.
Yes,
Is that what I am?
He comes in the second half and he takes care
I
of it.
wish I was that young.
18 years young. And let's go there for a second, Blaine. Have you ever seen anything like that in terms of a coach's decision on a big stage like that where you are willing to risk everything and put in an 18-year-old kid in hopes that he'll win you the national championship?
It was unbelievable. Like when he put him in, I go, you got to be kidding me right now.
I thought Jalen Hurts was injured.
He's putting him in, but afterward, when they asked Nick Saban, they said, "What were you doing?" And he said, "Well, it was obvious we weren't going to be able to run the football anymore. So he's a better passer. He's a better passer than Hurts. So we just had to go with a better passer. So obviously, he values his skill set throwing the ball more than he does Hurts' value throwing the ball. And so it was a strategic decision based on what he thought that they could do against that Georgia defense. So that's amazing, huh? And how about Harris, the running back?
Najee Harris.
He spent a lot of time here.
Two informal
I met him a couple of times when he was here.
Yeah.
Yeah, too bad he didn't come here. He's pretty good.
Hey, Najee.
I think he made the right choice, though.
You're ever upset about your lack of playing time at Alabama?
Yeah, let me
gonna
just
be the guy
let me
next
just say, if Najee Harris comes to BYU, they definitely go to a bowl last year. Let's just say that, right? That guy's amazing.
Adrian Peterson-esque.
So,
Oh yes.
So this move with Tua Tagovailoa made me think, well, at LSU, why don't you pull Tanner Mangum and put in Bo Hunt? Like that thought came to my mind, and that's in a lesser kind of game. That was quite the decision.
Yeah, no, it was big, and I do think strategically in his mind, it wasn't, hey, this guy's not getting the job done, because BYU's quarterbacks they're a little bit similar, although Bo would run around a little bit more, and maybe they needed that strategically. But I think in Nick Saban's mind, it was a pure strategic decision. Okay, we've tried this and this and this and this and this. The run game's not going to work. These guys are really, really stout. We have to be able to throw the football. This kid's going to give us a better chance to win throwing the ball. That's why we're putting him in. And so I don't know that was the mindset for BYU. I don't know if BYU even knew who they were at that time and what the quarterback situation was and what the skill set of those guys. I mean, he had very well established by the end of the season in a national championship game. One guy throws it better than the other guy runs it better than the other.
Okay.
And he knew what he needed.
Even if it was a freshman.
And he's also surrounded with, on both sides of the ball, probably like 17 NFL guys. So that helps too.
Yeah, when you can put in a backup guy and you're surrounded by NFL talent, it should make you feel okay.
I would have been good in that game if I could just hand off to Najee Harris all game long. It would have been all right.
Let's stay with the football theme, and we have been discussing our way too early projections for BYU football in 2018. Jarom and I just went through each and every game on the 2018 slate. We think that it'll be 7-5.
Could be.
Okay?
That'd be good. 7-5 would be good.
7-5. Okay, where do you
with the
see?
road schedule they have, that's probably about right. 6-6 or 7-5 would be great.
I'm guessing the odds makers in Vegas will put the over/under at about 6.5 wins.
Yeah, I think that would be great. Now, there's so much dependent on. I know you guys talked about this, but how healthy the teams they're playing stay. As a team that we're expecting to be like, I think Boise State, based on what they got coming back, should be really good next year. That's a road game. That's a tough one. But if they have a bunch of injuries early because BYU plays them late, are they depleted by the time they play them? How's Utah by the time BYU plays them? But more importantly, how's BYU physically by the time they get into some of these games? I like their chances of beating Arizona, early in the season when I think they'll be fairly healthy. But part of BYU's struggles this year was just an unbelievable number of injuries. I don't know how you win football games when you have 30-plus guys hurt and 20-plus on your two deep. They can't have that, or they don't even get to 6 next year. So they can't have that, and that's just unpredictable. That's why it's so hard right now to set an over-under on wins. If they stay healthy and the teams that they play stay healthy and everybody's what we think we're going to be, that's a lot of ifs, right? Then I think 7 is a reasonable number at that point.
Get to a bowl game. I think that's the clear goal for BYU football, and anything beyond that is probably gravy.
Yeah, and they're going to be better offensively because there's just no way you can have the injuries they had offensively last year. You can't lose all of your running backs and all of your quarterbacks and all of your tight ends but one.
It was dumb.
It just doesn't happen.
Now, was this a fluke or was this systematic in some way? Like, does BYU need to address this in the offseason? Hey, we had a bunch of injuries. That might not be by accident. Like, do we need to adjust how we're training.
I think
how
they are.
we're
I think they're looking at that.
conditioning.
I think they're definitely. I think they have looked at it.
You
I
have
think,
to look at everything.
and they continue to look at it. You have to, when you have that number of injuries, you have to go. Let's look at programs that are relatively injury free. What do they do different than we do? I think they're doing that. I really.
What the heck did Georgia do? Because I think I heard during the broadcast last night that Georgia had like very limited major injuries all season long.
You're going to get hurt in football. It's just, can you limit the ones
Yeah.
that can you limit some?
You need to be as few as possible. So you do everything you can to protect the kids. I know that's in Kalani's mindset. First and foremost, how do I keep these guys healthy? And Dallas, my son-in-law played at Stanford, and we'd had like a rash of ACLs. So I was talking to the guys over at Stanford. They've had one ACL in 5 years. So
How?
Are they just lucky, or are they doing something different? And so those are the things you look at. You're like, okay, so what's Stanford doing that they have so few of these? They have had no Liz Frank injuries. What are they doing? Is it dramatically different? Are there just a few little things that they're doing differently? And so you start to look at other programs and say, what programs have been relatively injury-free over not just a year, over a period of a couple of years, and how similar are we to what they're doing, and if there's some slight changes that we need to make. And I think that they're doing that. I believe that Kalani, that's a high priority for Kalani, because they got to keep these guys healthy. You can't have another season like last year in terms of injuries, because I don't care who you've got coaching, that number of injuries, you won't get to a bowl game again. So they got to figure that out, and I think they're working hard to figure that out.
We are 235 days away from the BYU football season opening against the University of Arizona in Tucson, but we are right smack in the middle of the BYU basketball season and coming off a game that caught a lot of people by surprise. You called it. You were there in Stockton to see the crazy finish between BYU and Pacific. A loss for BYU, non-St. Zaga loss. They dropped to 2-2 in WCC play. How has that 2-2 start impacted your expectations for this basketball team?
Well, I think that they're behind the 8 ball now, because I thought that they would maybe have a loss to a team that they shouldn't lose to, but you just kind of hope that that's later on in the season when you're kind of on a roll and you lose one, you go, that's an aberration, then you get back on a roll. This is so early. I feel like now they kind of have to play with their backs against the wall. I don't know that they can have another non-St. Mary's and Gonzaga loss. And this is like San Francisco's that's a tough team. They got to play them again, and that's a team that can beat some people. I do think this season, though, that there are some teams. I think San Francisco can beat some teams. San Diego can beat some teams. I think this Pacific team, if they shoot it and can drive like they did, can beat some teams. And I'm talking about St. Mary's and Gonzaga when I say beat some teams. San Francisco beat Nevada by 2 in a low-scoring game. I talked to Eric Musselman because I had Nevada and Fresno State, and I said, man, tell me about that San Francisco game. And he goes, man, they just shot lights out. They made 11 threes, and they defended unbelievably well. And his comment was, if they're knocking down threes, they can pretty much beat anybody. And remember, Nevada's a team that spent most of the preseason ranked. They're a really good basketball team. They're likely to win the Mountain West Conference.
Yeah, they're the best in the Mountain West.
So is it possible San Francisco can have a good game and beat a St. Mary's or beat a Gonzaga? Sure they can. Those teams are really good again this year, St. Mary's and Gonzaga. But they're not, like Gonzaga's not Gonzaga from last year. They're not invincible. If they have an off shooting night and somebody shoots well, they could lose one. So I don't think you have to go undefeated in the league. But, I think you can lose 3 and contend for a league title. But BYU's already got 2.
Yeah, and that's the startling issue at the beginning of league play, right? Is we've seen improvement from this BYU team. Non-conference was tremendous, 11-2. So to lose 2 of the first 4 is tough. And we've been talking about, obviously BYU's improved, but I've been arguing really hard, hey, BYU needs to validate the improvement by not dropping as many of these non-St. Zaga and beating. So how do you see BYU reacting in the next couple of weeks here?
I think that they'll be more determined. They'll be determined because they were a little suspect defensively in this last game. Now, it was a different style of play. They'd been really good at defending threes this year. And Pacific just said, no, we are going to just be relentless with our guards with a ball in their hand, turning the corner, and attacking you. We'll put our shoulder down. We'll dive into you. We are getting into the paint, and we're going to finish in the paint. And, Reynolds made some shots. My heavens, like he was contact sideways, shooting it up, and they were going in. So they played remarkably well, but BYU struggled to stay in front of the ball. And they've been pretty good, but nobody's really attacked them like that. Now, there are not a lot of teams in the league that have 3 guards that can attack like these guys can. So that's good news. And secondly, I think BYU is going to really come back and focus on that. And anytime they've been hurt already in this early season by a specific thing in a game, it seems like they come back the next game and they're much better at it. It's a very teachable group of guys. So I have some hope that they're going to figure out how to help a little quicker and get in the gaps. They'll stay in front of the ball a little bit longer. And the next time they play Pacific, it won't be quite so easy to turn that corner and attack. And so I think they'll get better because of it. Remember, this is a really young team. And it's a completely different philosophy. Now, if they're going to get to where I think they can get, where their potential is, then they're going to have to get one of the other outside shooters, whether it's Haws or Celius, to start knocking down some shots. And I hope that they get Nixon back, too, because I think he would have made a big difference interior on help defense in this game.
Talking with dual threat analyst Blaine Fowler. Okay, we'll finish with this, Blaine. TJ Haws has what we thought turned a corner against Illinois State and Weber State. He went for 20 and 24, but then as we've gone back into West Coast Conference play, he's kind of faded off again. How would you define his role and analyze his play to this point in this season?
First of all, he's way better from a talent perspective than he's playing right now. And he knows that. We all know that, right? I think he's having the hardest time of anybody adjusting to the new concepts offensively.
Amen.
He's been best last year when he just has the ball in his hands and he can go create his own shot.
And now he's the two-guard.
Now he's part of an offense where you kind of have to be really comfortable with your shots come in this motion, in the passing game, not on the first side, but we've talked about this a lot, but on the second and third side, like where are those shots? And when you get those shots, are you comfortable in those spots? And right now, he's still thinking a little bit too much. And I keep waiting for that game where he just all of a sudden he's comfortable and a couple of shots go down and you see the light bulb come on, like literally a light bulb's running around over his head. He's like, okay, I get this. Guys, that has to happen in the next couple of games. They really, really need him. For him, it's not a can't do because he's physically not capable of doing this. I think this offense, for anybody on the team, it's the biggest adjustment for him. And he is that. I do think that's affecting his shot a little bit. He's got to get out of this slump. Can he do it? I think he can do it. They got to just keep encouraging him. He's got to keep running it, and he's got to believe. And I think it can change. But if it doesn't, that really hurts them. He is a third scorer coming off of screens and catching and shooting and those kinds of things, can make this team a really dangerous team offensively. They're pretty good because they're good defensively without it, but they've got to have him. And you know what? It would be really nice if Celius would get his stroke back too. One of those two is all we need.
Two have regressed, and that's not good.
One of those two. We need one of those two to consistently knock down shots, and they'll be okay. And if Nixon can get back, and I saw him walking around without a boot the other day, he really helps through it. He would have helped tremendously against Pacific. He's a very good help defender. He gets over. He's physical. He cuts those guys off. He was badly missed in that game.
All right, Blaine Fowler, if you want more of Uncle B, you can watch BYU basketball live against Pepperdine Thursday night, BYUtv, 9 Eastern, 7 Mountain Time. Thanks, Blaine.
You bet, guys.
Yep.